Hello, everybody. My name is Chet Ugney, and I'm a Master's in Public Policy student from the Harvard Kennedy School, and I've been serving as a Taubman Fellow with Mayor Jake Wilson's new administration, helping out with the transition and the first few weeks of work, setting up for the first 100 days. And I'm excited to be having a conversation with the new mayor about his first few weeks in office and some of his goals for the administration and his governing principles. Mayor Wilson, how's it going today?
It's going great, Chet. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for helping us out as we get going here with this new administration.
It's been almost 2 weeks since you were sworn in. What have these first few days been like?
They've been busy. You know, it's how I tend to operate. I'm happiest when I'm busy. So yeah, it's been some action-packed days and nights. I'm enjoying it though. I've headed home every single night with a smile on my face, feeling good about what we're doing. You know, there have been some tough moments, no doubt about that. But just finding the joy in the work, I feel like it's something we talk about, and I feel like we're seeing that. We're assembling a really good team, and I feel like I'm seeing that attitude throughout the team, and it's great to see. I think we're, you know, I know they say to set expectations low, but you know, I think we're going to do some really good things.
Is there anything that's been like the most energizing thing that has happened?
I would say the degree to which staff have bought into not just a new meeting structure that we rolled out, but some different. We rolled out basically the bones of a restructuring that we want to pursue as part of the next budget, and I've been very pleasantly surprised by the degree to which staff have not just, you know, bought into it, but actually they seem excited in many quarters about, you know, the conversations that need to happen before we ensconce this in a budget of looking at like, well, how's it going to work? What's the best place for, you know, this division to be or that division to be? It feels like there's you know, it's beyond buy-in. It's actually, I think, genuine enthusiasm for that. That's
great to hear. And in these first few weeks, is there anything that's been particularly surprising or something you didn't expect to be spending as much time on?
The amount of time that I spend signing things, I've been warned. I guess in that sense, it's not surprising, but it's, you know, it's lived up to the hype. There's a lot of time spent signing things. The mayor needs to spend a lot of time and energy. We'll say there's a lot of practice put in on signatures. There's no auto pen
Sure.
in the city of Somerville, we'll say.
That's great. That's great. And we're going to talk a bit about some of the things you talked about on the campaign, some of your promises and commitments, and how you plan to actualize those things. So you talked a lot about City Hall being more accessible and accountable to the public. What does that look like in practice?
Well, it looks like on day one, hour one, we went and opened up the mayor's office door. Cut a social media video about that, you know, made sure the word got out about that. That was a promise kept right away. It also means holding office hours. We did that the first Thursday in office, week one. We're continuing to do that. Thursdays, you can come down to City Hall and talk to your mayor about anything on your mind, big issue, small pet peeve, whatever. You know, we're there to listen. And so far, the response has been very enthusiastic, as I expected it to be. You know, this is something that I know people crave, which is the ability to just come talk to their mayor.
Yeah, the first office hours went well last week.
Yeah, it was great. Some familiar faces for that one. Some new faces coming in week two, I know. So yeah, it's something I look forward to. I always said on the campaign trail that city staff work late on Thursday nights. Their mayor should as well. And that's how we're spending our Thursday nights, is just being there to meet with the public at a time that works well for most people. You know, not everyone can come in during the day. So those evenings work well for that, and we're going to keep doing that.
That's definitely something that I think is important to folks in Somerville. You've also emphasized getting the basics right. Mm-hmm. What does that mean in terms of day-to-day city services?
It means that we're really focused on operations. You know, you can have all the ambitious policy and service goals in the world. If your operations aren't in order, you're going to struggle to accomplish those. So that means, I mentioned earlier the shift that we did, the new meeting structure that we put in place. Basically, we're pursuing sort of you see it a lot in you know, the agile development world, the stand-ups or huddles, where people quickly just whip around and talk about what they're working on, their blockers or challenges. In this case, key decisions that they need the mayor to decide on. And that gets escalated very quickly up to the mayor's office on the first workday of each work week. Operationally, we want to know what's going on in every corner of the city. We want to know key things that we're going to be have to be weighing in on, so that we can make those decisions, and that operations roll on. And we're seeking feedback from staff on ways to make it better. We're listening to that, and we're incorporating that just as part of a process optimization.
And when you talk about these sort of internal meetings and decision points, those translate into what things people see and feel from their government and the services that they're provided. Are there specific services that you want to be working on improving through this model?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't want to single out any department. Sure. I don't want anyone to feel like there's criticism of the department. I view it. I really view it as opportunities for improvement. Right. What can we get better at across the board? Constituent services are just always an emphasis. Our 311 folks are amazing. Talking about, I'll bring up something that we had an internal meeting about, which is, what's the experience like of coming into City Hall? How do you feel when you come through those doors? Is it a welcoming environment? Do you feel like you are going to get connected with people who can help solve problems for you? That's a real focus, is thinking it's almost the psychology, the aesthetics of what that experience is like of coming into City Hall, and then having folks there who can point you in the right direction or answer your questions. It's really important that people feel like City Hall is there to help them. And that's been a real focus of ours early on. And I would say stay tuned for some, what I think are really exciting improvements that we're going to look to make to that user experience of coming into City Hall.
And how are you hoping to measure progress on some of these services?
I mean, we could use our own internal performance management tools. Somerville's got a lot of headlines in the past for our Somerstat division that has been used. It's an important performance management and measurement tool to make sure that we're hitting the mark in terms of our internal expectations, service level agreements, the promises we've made about the level of service that we're going to uphold here. So yeah, there's going to be our internal things. Somerstat coming back, roaring back to life as doing that work is a key piece of that. I also think it's good just to talk to people about their experiences, and I like the idea of constituent satisfaction survey work after the fact.
I want to dive into some of your background that some folks may not know much about, where you come from or your personal history, but you talked about it a bit in your inaugural address about growing up on a farm in Iowa.
Yep.
And now you're the mayor of a dense, fast-moving city like Somerville. So how did you get here, and what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, well, I was actually born in a city. I spent the first 2 years of my life in Minneapolis, moved to a farm when I was 2, then basically grew up on that farm. While I was definitely bored at certain times, I'm an outgoing Midwestern extrovert. I love social situations. Definitely as a teenager, did not love being on a farm at all times, where you need to drive to go see anyone. But there were some real positives to that. You learn the value of hard work on a farm. If you don't do the work, it's not going to get done. And that's a lesson that stays with you. Something you'll see from that upbringing from me is I don't stand around when work's needing to be done. I don't leave that to other people. We were at an event this weekend and people seemed shocked that the mayor was helping carry boxes of things after the event. But to me, standing around and just expecting other people to do that, that's just not how I was raised. So, we talk about rolling up our sleeves. We'll do that literally. I'm not it's not even about not being afraid. It would feel weird for me to not jump in and help out. Whether it's physical labor of moving something or just doing the work. That part of the an experience growing up on a farm that stays with you. In terms of cities, after high school, I came out for college in Philadelphia at the University of Pennsylvania. Philly was just the perfect city for someone coming from the Midwest. It's a tough town, but it's a boisterous, friendly town too, and I loved it. It was such a cool time to be in a city too. It was in the second Ed Rendell administration in Philadelphia. And there's a really good book by Buzz Bissinger, A Prayer for the City, that looks at that first Rendell administration, where they came into a city facing real problems. I mean, it makes ours look quaint by comparison, right? and how they went about really creatively addressing those. That it's a book I'd really encourage folks to read, of how, we want all ideas. we want to consider everything. That approach really, that and just putting your head down and doing the work really paid off in a big way for the Rendell administration and for Philadelphia. So I love being in a city. I love the energy of it. So when it came time after college to move up here, my wife and I came up here. We lived in Brighton for the first 5 years while she got her PhD from Boston College. And then we moved to Somerville in 2004. And I love it. I wouldn't live anywhere else. When I say I love Somerville, that's not just talk. Like this is the place for me. It's where I found home. I just think it's everything. It's perfect. It's people who are much friendlier than the typical regional baseline, mm-hmm. and we've really found community here. And I'm a big fan of Somerville.
And you in your speech, you tied your upbringing to your passion for a strong safety net. Can you talk a little bit about that connection?
Yeah. I know in the speech I talked about it. A lot of people have come up to me. Actually, 2 people yesterday came up and commented about how meaningful they thought it was. I talked about an episode back in '86 when the farm crisis was at its worst, where my family basically we ran out of money and there wasn't money for food. And I'm sure my parents even shielded me from just how terrifying some of that was. But I remember looking into the fridge and there was just, I think there were condiments in there. That was it, and we made it through because, 1, we got connected to a food bank, and 2, we had neighbors who looked out for us. I remember the story was our neighbors had been down in Missouri and came back with a watermelon, and it felt like a miracle, I remember my dad's reaction. Watermelon's one of his favorite treats, and to have that come in at a really tough time for us, it meant the world to him, to our family. But yeah, we made it through because we had those supports, and that's in these times we're in. That's what we're really, really concerning ourselves with, is doing what we can to replace the vanishing, disappearing safety nets elsewhere. With the chaos federally. With a state government that's struggling to fill the gaps it can, but has its own fiscal uncertainty. So it's really fallen on us, and we're having to do all this while facing our own budget crunch. So just trying to get creative and make sure that we're there for the people of Somerville, and to the extent we can, just making sure that people don't hit the ground, that there's some sort of safety net there.
Yeah. You talked a bit about hard work and your passion for hard work. You talked about compassion for those who are struggling or need a hand up. Are there other personal values that are translating to governing principles for you?
Yeah, I think earnestness is one of them. I think I'm a fairly earnest person. I think that's something that when you talk to people, I really care deeply about this stuff. I'm upfront with people. I don't tell people what they want to hear. It's, to me, that's a big part. The people have placed an enormous amount of trust in me. That it can leave you kind of in awe thinking about what you've been entrusted with. It's not lost on me that basically the people of Somerville said, of everyone in the city, we think you are the one that we want to lead us forward. And it's an awesome responsibility, and I take it very seriously. And I want to make sure that I repay that trust, that they know I'm always working for them, that I'm always listening, that I take seriously when they bring concerns to me, that I'm not dismissive of people, that they have a friend in the mayor's office who just on a personal level cares deeply about them and their problems, and that we're building an administration that set up to address, that's how we're going to operate, right? We want to be a responsive, empathetic, service-driven organization.
You mentioned the neighborliness of this community, and how it felt a little different when you came here those many years ago. Are there early Somerville stories of things that made you feel like you belonged here for you and your partner, your wife at the time?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I noticed is that people said hello to each other here. Coming from the other side of the river, no shade on Boston. I think it's probably different now. Boston has changed a lot since we last lived there. But Boston has that kind of colder Brahmin vibe. And I noticed it right away coming to Somerville. And I think a lot of that dates back to, Somerville, used to be this, it was like basically a urban blue-collar bedroom community, right? And when you talk to folks who've lived here a long time, those stories just come pouring out of how, the typical one is like, oh, I knew when I was little, I could be playing with a friend, in another neighborhood of town, but if we did something wrong, Mrs. Donovan would have called my mom and she would know about it before I even got home, right? People looked out for one another. I feel like that's a national thing. Honestly, we're struggling with this. I feel like we're losing our neighborliness as a country. We're losing our regard for our fellow human nationally. We're getting caught up in resentment and, bickering. It's online culture, honestly, that's been really corrosive. And that's, my hope is that Somerville, we can manage to buck that trend. We're seeing divisiveness definitely creep into Somerville, and I want to see what we can do to just really lean into our neighborliness, to the things that bind us together as friends, as neighbors. We're 82,000 people in 4.1 square miles, right? We got to be getting along with each other, or it's gonna be rough, with that many people in that small of a space. So, I think people want that. I think sometimes we just have to remind ourselves of how good that part is, and how important that fabric of the community is that's built around respect and neighborliness.
In essence, it sounds like you're saying you want to keep Somerville. The things that people know and love about their community, and make sure those stay steadfast in the face of the sort of changing environment around us.
Yeah, and I would say part of keeping Somerville, it involves this used to be a real family city, and there have been real efforts to try to bring that back. After it's tough on families, right? And so I'm looking at what can we do to make sure that this is a city where families feel supported, feel like they want to stay, like there are good things happening here that makes it easier to be a family in Somerville than elsewhere, that keeps families in Somerville. Because we don't have our housing units aren't always the biggest. You can end up with children crammed into one bedroom, to stay here. So we want to make Somerville be as much of a draw as possible for families to keep them here. And we want our seniors to be able to age in place. The idea that someone's lived here their entire life and not suddenly has to move out because, the realities of aging, the idea of that really saddens me. We want to try to prevent, displacement because of aging. And then the arts. That's been a big part. Somerville has this amazing cultural history because of it goes back to the amount of, sort of post-industrial space that was here that was just great as naturally occurring affordable art space. So we developed this great arts ecosystem that's now really under attack from the forces of development, right? Those are the soft targets for developers are, this naturally occurring, whether it's naturally occurring affordable housing, naturally occurring commercial, naturally occurring art space. Those are in terms of, if you're a developer, those are going to be the cheapest spaces to acquire, so they're looking at those. And that means we have to figure out how to protect and help our arts community thrive here. Because if we lose that, we're losing our heart and soul.
Certainly. You're stepping in during a time of real uncertainty. You touched on some of this in terms of the divisiveness around us. There's a downturn in the lab market, plus federal volatility that's happening, and folks are trying to navigate those risks. How do you hope to help the city navigate those risks while protecting core services and making sure basic services are still available?
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing we have to answer as part of this upcoming budget process, right? Is making sure that we're facing a $4.9 million shortfall right now. And how do we get to, obviously we have to balance our budget. It's not an option. We can't run deficits. So how do we get to a point where we, arrive at a budget that works without abandoning our core principles and making sure that services don't really, that they don't go into a decline. We did get good news this week, great news actually, on the life science front. Folks might have seen we announced on the city side after a lease was signed that Transmedics is coming to Assembly Square. And that's really important. The previous administration, we got to credit former Mayor Katana Ballantyne, along with really the economic development staff who worked on this so much. And the previous city council, I was a member of that, went along with giving an $18 million tax increment financing deal to basically to make the project pencil out, because we understood that by cutting this tax break, it was going to unlock $75 million in expected tax revenues that would not otherwise have happened. You basically get 60 cents on the dollar for empty lab space. And that was going to only decline as that lab space did not, as it deteriorated. So it was really important to bring in a tenant. And with this one deal, we're filling 25% of our vacant lab space. So
Wow.
that feels, one, it's a big relief just financially for the city, but also it feels like there's real momentum now. We can point to this and say, hey, look, we just brought in this very exciting company. Who can we get to follow suit? Hopefully this is the start of a period of us going out and bringing in others. We'd love to bring that. We'd love to get that other 75% of vacant lab space tenanted, because that will allow us to have the funds to really go pursue aggressively our policy agenda.
So it sounds like there's an investment of some city dollars, but the return on that investment is significant and can translate into more funding for city services, funding for staff, resources, those kinds of things.
Fourfold. I mean, you look at it from an opportunity cost point of view. If we hadn't given that $18 million tax break, it's very likely that building would have sat there untenanted. We would have seen declining property tax revenues from it. And instead, by being willing to do this TIF, as they call it, now we're set to realize a real windfall when we most need it. Also, that's a key thing. We're looking at this is a multi-year economic slump that we're looking at being in. We're realistic about that, and that's why these revenues could be really helpful for us at a tough time.
That's great to hear. You also mentioned in the inaugural address that some Somerville residents have been afraid to leave their homes because of current immigration enforcement activity and other fears that people have. What is your message to those folks, those residents of Somerville? And what is the city doing right now to support safety, stability, access to services, and immigrant communities that live here and call it home?
Yeah, I have friends who are in that category of feeling like they can't go live their lives like they did previously because of the terror that's being inflicted on our immigrant community by the federal regime, and it's infuriating to see this going on. And we've seen what's happened elsewhere in the country, where there have been, sort of a surge, basically, in federal immigration enforcement officials coming in there. We are prepared should that happen here in Somerville. We're doing meetings with neighboring cities, making sure that we're coordinating efforts on this. Also meeting with city staff to make sure that we're prepared. The good news, there are plans in place where we're visiting those, going through, making sure that we're prepared for a surge should it come. But my message to folks in Somerville who are looking at this and are fearful is, you have a government in Somerville here that absolutely, to a person, is committed to being there for you, to doing everything we can to make sure that we're protecting our friends and neighbors in this city. Our values are non-negotiable. This has come up with some of the grants that we've gone after that now have language in there that would ask us potentially to, sell out those values. And I've been heartened that to a person, I've not heard any city councilor, any school committee member, no one in the city government suggest for a second that we question our values, that those are in any way negotiable. And that's the biggest thing I want people to know is, we are with you. And we're going to make sure that we are doing absolutely everything we can to keep you safe as valued members of our community.
It's an important message. Where can residents go for accurate information and help?
Biggest thing is that people know their rights. Our Somerville Office of Immigrant Affairs is doing a lot of work on that front. We're trying to ramp up even the efforts there to make sure that people know that the services there. We're talking about how we connect people with help should the unthinkable happen and someone is taken into custody. how do we make sure that the family is connected? There's a lot of creative thinking going on right now to make sure that we're prepared for those eventualities, should they happen.
And as we close out, looking ahead, what are 2 to 3 things residents should watch for in the next month or two that will show the direction of your administration?
Well, a small thing that might mean a lot to people is when the City Council does that now required by the charter public hearing on the community's budget priorities. We'll be there listening. We're not just going to rely on a summary of that. I plan on personally, I think it's likely virtual, but I'll be there in the audience listening in because I want to hear directly from people what's important to them. I want to set some expectations. This is not an ambitious year for our budget. It's because of the realities of what we're facing fiscally. It's going to mean this is more about tough choices than about. But every budget is about tough choices. This will be about very tough choices in terms of what are we sort of preserving and maintaining in the budget. That's a big one. Hopefully people notice a general spirit of joyful constituent service from top to bottom in the government. That everyone's buying into the idea that we're here to make people's lives better. I hope that's something that really comes across. And on the communications side, we definitely we want to get the word out. I don't know if people have seen it. We're being very aggressive so far with going out and just cutting videos of me out in the community talking about things. We want to just really step up how communicative we are about things that people really care about. So I think in the short term, those are probably 3 that people are most likely to detect. A lot of the stuff we want to do is going to take time. I'm an impatient person. I want to, just change everything, just implement all this stuff immediately. But I'm also realistic, and I know that we're not going to just implement a bunch of wild change overnight, and some of it's going to, we want to take our time on some things and get it right also. So those are 3 things I think you'll see pretty immediately. In addition, obviously, I mentioned earlier to City Hall, hopefully looking a little bit different on the inside and giving a different experience. But yeah, that's what I expect people will notice.
And what's one commitment you want residents to hold you to in 2026?
Obviously you can say the open door policy, but that's an easy one. Commitment is listening to people, making sure that I'm, I promise to be there. That's an easy one because I know I'm going to be there too. You asking for a tough one, like something? I don't know. I feel like I'm someone. I keep my promises. I don't promise things I can't follow through on. Just accountability in general. Like, let us know if there's an area where we're falling short. We want to hear it. I promise. These aren't empty words. Like, we want to know where we can do better so we can actually address that and fix it.
All right, Mayor Wilson, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Chad.